So, Ankit, thank you for joining this sort of the Zoom interviews. I wish I was there in person. It's always a privilege to talk to you and to learn from you. And as I have seen you through the process of building a company, it has been truly, for me, a heartwarming experience. So, Ankit, in your assessment, you know, give me your feeling of who is or what is it to be defined as an entrepreneur.
First, Sanjeev, I'm so honored that you think of me and you think you wanted to include my experience in this book. So I'm very much, it's my privilege to be here. I was in a 1-year training program at Kaufman Foundation, where they trained us on how to start scalable biotech companies and build billion-dollar enterprise from a scientific idea. And we had the same question to them, that what makes us an entrepreneur? Why, or what is the characteristics of an entrepreneur? Why are they betting on us as scientists? And so how are we differentiating us from other scientists, and how am I differentiating myself from all other very successful businessmen and startup entrepreneurs? And so the comment was that a person who sees an opportunity, a big market opportunity that is not seen by others, and even if it is seen by others, they don't believe in it, but the entrepreneur believes in it. He has full conviction that if this can be made and brought to market, it will be successful. And so the entrepreneur differentiates himself by believing in something in which nobody else believes. And so he has to fight many battles in proving his theory or conviction, and then have the market accept it. And by the time market accepts it, then they realize it was so obvious, but it was so hard for them to believe.
So, just as a quick check, do you believe that the entrepreneur has a clarity of what that commercial model is?
They do not have clarity. No. There is no clarity in entrepreneur's mind, actually. It's very clouded, but he believes in it, that if he reaches that there will be a model and this can be done and there is a need and it can be made big. He doesn't have to know how. And for that, he has to build a team around it and work with experienced people who are doing this, but they have not thought about this idea.
So then the next question is, when you began, and as you called it, uncertainties, a cloud of uncertainties, I call it sometimes madness, right? Because in a cloud of uncertainty, when you step in, there is an evolution that occurs. So share with my readers the evolution that you went through from the Kaufman Institute as a scientist to an amazing entrepreneurial thinking that you currently have.
Very good question, Sanjeev. And that is the genesis of what I have become now. So as a scientist, I used to believe in a lot of data analysis, how things are done. They have to be predictive models. But then as I grew, I realized that selling the idea to people and to be able to openly talk about it in simple terms is very important. And I should not presume that people, just because it is easy for me to understand, that everybody else would understand it, or because it is so obvious to me and because I can rationalize it to myself, it would be an obvious idea or obvious concept for even other experts in the field. From 10 years ago, when I was focused on proving the science, now I'm focused on proving the business models and how to market the product, how to sell it, how to build an executive team around it, how to raise more capital to fund the idea. And so more focused on building a business around it than proving the science. Because what I have learned is that there is a lot of proven science at the universities and in the market, but the death that the science meets is because it doesn't get commercialized, because for either people think there is no market for it, it's too obvious, or they think it cannot be developed, and or there is no market need for it. And those assumptions come from obviousness. And I think if people can attach themselves to certain product or an idea or a cause, and if they can sell it to the investors and to the market, then that can be a very good idea. And so the shift has been that earlier I was too much focused on science, but now I am very much focused on how the science can solve uh, certain diseases in my field, and how do I get to the clinicians, how do I get to the market leaders, and how do I get to venture capital to fund those things.
Could we then sort of say, when you was a technical entrepreneur, you thought about a product, the technology of a product, and you knew there was a need for it, which is how your passion came about. As you evolved, you realized that there is other side to your product, another product, which is called the enterprise value or your share value.
Very good.
Right?
That is correct.
So therefore, then you said, as I learned more and became good, or got fully engaged, began this, I also need to have the other side of the business, which is the enterprise value, which you call as the business acumen.
Yep.
So as an entrepreneur, you began to match the skills of being a technical product and the share as a product, because
Yep.
one without the other is not a wealth creation engine.
Now, like you said, that I have two products. So one is the scientific medical device or drug that I am building, but the more important than that is this stock in the company in which people are investing. And to increase the enterprise value is also on the shoulders of the founder, because that's what people are betting into. So it's beyond just getting FDA clearance of a product. It's beyond just getting reimbursement. It's beyond just product being used by the people. It's also about creating revenue and a revenue model that gives return on investment to the investors, and that increases the enterprise value for everybody, all shareholders and all employees.
So you have created that. Maybe you can share some of that, in your expansion of how and what Imbed as a company has become in terms of product to a family of products.
So when I was a Kaufman Fellow, and so just to give background about that, uh, the Kaufman Foundation was founded by Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Evan Marion Kaufman, and he was the founder of the largest pharmaceutical company in the United States in 1980s, called Marion Laboratories, and that was sold for billions of dollars to Dow Pharma in late 1980s. And Mr. Kaufman started that company in his basement by making calcium tablets. And so that brings back to your question, that he started the company around calcium tablets, but his vision was not to create a calcium tablet company. His vision was to create $1 billion pharmaceutical giant enterprise that can serve the needs of all drugs and medical devices in the United States. And that was our vision too at Imbed. And to do that, for people to believe in it, we still have to have the first product, prove it in the market, a new basic science from first principles. So it was a fundamentally new platform of a nanopolymeric film, which has multiple layers in it, that was never commercialized in the past. And that could become a fundamental platform for delivering hundreds of drugs or therapeutics on a localized and sustained way to various parts of the human body, including skin, lungs, livers, fascia, or on brain, or for the ocular drug delivery. And so it had very vast potential. But at the same time, when investors like yourself were looking, they wanted us to focus on one thing at the first time, and to prove in that model not just the science but the entrepreneur himself, that can I take this first product out to the market through FDA clearance and reimbursement codes, and build a team around it to show that can this be commercialized. And once it is commercialized and there is investor confidence in this process that was laid out, that's when I can go back, and I am doing that right now, on commercializing a whole pipeline of products based on this platform.
Now, you were able to access equity or capital rather than equity from research grants, but using grant as a source of capital. Maybe you can share that. How
Sure.
do you think about it? So.
Yeah, no, we were very lucky because I came from the academic background and I did a very long postdoctoral research. I observed and learned how to write federal grants to fund the basic science research work. But then when I came out into the university, into the company, we learned that there are mechanisms at NIH and NSF to fund high risk and high potential uh, research in a small business environment that can result in a marketable product. What they also needed was a business plan behind those that research to commercialize. And so I used my training at the university to write proposals for these grants, and were lucky to get several of them funded at Imbed. That improved the or increased the investor confidence in the science part of it. And that provides a lot of confidence to the investors who want to invest in building the commercial program around this scientific endeavor at the company.
You recently approached private wealth capital.
Mhm.
You will now seek into much more bigger sources of capital. You're also looking at corporate capital and stuff like that. So, what is the internal thinking process that you have that you could share with other entrepreneurs on how the choices that you are making while all of these options are being open to you at this stage of your company?
This is a very important question, Sanjeev, because an entrepreneur can only be successful by adding more stakeholders in the company at all the stages. And so I couldn't have been here today just by myself or just by getting grants from NIH or NSF. The reason I was here is because I was able to bring some very successful people, well, including like yourself, uh, into the company through investment. And they were able to guide me through this complex path of building a company, developing a product, inventing the science, and at the same time reaching out to different capital sources. So, and now that I have become more sophisticated in the sense that now we are raising growth capital. Uh, there are many more sources that I have learned in recent past, including going to private wealth capital, where there are family offices, then there are wealth managers whose clients want to invest in high risk companies like us, a part of their portfolio at least. Then there are corporate VCs, and then there are corporate partners who corporate groups who do not take the risk of developing this new science or new product or testing a new market by themselves, but would prefer to support an entrepreneur or a startup company to take that risk and prove it, and then and partner with them in helping them commercialize this product.
If you had to do it all over again to where you are, what are those things that you would do differently?
And so if I do it again, I would partner with experienced people. I will bring stakeholders, experienced stakeholders early on in the company, and I would run things faster than I did in this first experience. In this first one, I was very cautious, and it's because it was an uncharted territory. But if I'm running this course again, I would accelerate it. I would take higher risks. I would take early on more capital. I would build a larger team early on because now I know how to build a team and how to manage those people. I will take more risks and bet early on things.
If there was a toolbox in which you had different tools, what were some of the 5 tools that you would recommend that people who are watching you should use?
My first tool set would be to find the right mentors, experts in the field. And if I had Kaufman Foundation help me on that. So if there is a group or somebody who can help us make the right connections to the experts and visionaries in that field, that would be number one. Then number two is having access to capital. The capital word is very different, very diverse. Uh, People who have not, even those who have got into it, it's difficult for them to raise new capital on a new idea. And people are generally betting on the entrepreneur at the time and their experience than the new idea. And so having access to the early stage capital early on, a tool that can provide me access to that early capital would be the second most important thing. Then third is the ecosystem. So if I could choose the ecosystem in which I want to incubate my next company, I would go to an ecosystem where failure is accepted, where people are encouraged to fail, to try and fail. Fourth is tool set is access to intellectual capital. So companies are made of people. They are built by people. They are the people who have built the company. And finding that right talent that is not only smart or intellectually capable of working in the industry, but also who embraces the uncertainty of a startup environment. That is difficult to find. That's the challenge I had in growing this company. And I got lucky to find those people. And then the fifth tool is commercialization, because that's where all scientists struggle, including myself, how to market it. So people undermine the marketing effort, but that is a good marketing engine would be the can accelerate the growth uh, enormously.
If I am a first-time entrepreneur and I'm looking at Ankit's, interview and I'm wanting to learn, how would I access those tools?
And no, I can give you my examples that ultimately where I found access to those tools. And so the first was about the human capital, since you mentioned, and University of Wisconsin. And the reason we are still in Madison is because UW is the hub, intellectual hub, global intellectual hub, where experts from all around the world come here to study. And so we get very bright scientists out of the university, and there are very bright professors. And having them or, or, or starting a company in that backyard was very instrumental in Embed's growth, because we could do a lot of research work through contract at the university, and we could hire a lot of fresh trained scientists into the company who were graduating while doing this kind of work. The second was again through the university, or big university like University of Wisconsin had a very healthy, strong, large alumni network that had been successful in a variety of fields. That is a very good source of uh, access to this successful people. And as it turns out, I got access to it, and in fact, access to Sanjeev, you, through that tool. So I would say university alumni are good tool sets. Then third is in raising capital, I found that there are organizations who help to take you on a tour to pitch to different cities and different investor groups. And those organizations were very helpful for us for raising early stage capital.
What were the three what not to do's that you would like to share with the watchers of your video?
So first in what not to do is the hesitation in the entrepreneurs in sharing their ideas. So they think that what they thought about it, which they think that it's really novel and very revolutionary, but they always hesitate in talking about it to even 10 people, even though they think it can improve the lives of millions of people. But there is this hesitation early on. And I trained myself also on that talk about the idea to as many people as possible. So the burden on us is to, as an early stage entrepreneurs, is to still prove it. So we should not hesitate in talking about the science, the idea, and the journey that we are planning to take. That's first thing. Second is, uh, and so this is not from my personal experience, but I've seen that not in what not to do. Do not take capital from people who might not be very supportive of you or of of your journey. And that's important. It's a very difficult decision to make at the time where we are raising capital and somebody is ready to invest, but to say no is very important at the time, because it will drastically change your personal journey. And I think for the startup that we are building, it's very important for the founder and entrepreneur to stay with that company with 100% passion. And one might lose that passion if we do not get along with the new partner that we are bringing in the company through this investment vehicle. Bring in people that you can get along with, and that not just because they are big names or just because they are coming from a big company, they might not be successful in the small high performance team environment if they do not believe in your vision and if they do not personally get along very well with you. So
Wonderful. Thank
those are
you
my three things.
so much. Very valuable. What are some of the questions you would ask if I were the entrepreneur?
One question that I always want to ask to any entrepreneur is that what drives them? Why are they crazy enough to do this thing? There are so many more ways to make money. There are so many more ways to have a happy, successful family and life. Why take the risk and uproot everything for pursuing this entrepreneurial idea? Why? What drives them? Why are they so crazy about it?
So if you're asking me,
Yeah, I'm asking you in this case.
I can
Oh, I
share.
thought you are
Yeah, no,
representing
correct. That
the
is correct.
entrepreneur.
But I think it's a very valid question for everybody, right? That all the people that are thinking or watching. But let me kind of give you, because you asked, this opportunity was for you to ask me a
Yeah.
question. And the single most thing that drives an entrepreneurial personality or thinking in me is it allows me to stay fully in the present, because you cannot stay fully in the present when you are constrained by the walls of other dimensions. Could be your boss, could be what the overall goal is. And how does that reward in the fully in the present? So an entrepreneurial journey is a passion to create. And a passion to create one company or multiple possibilities are based on you having the ability to connect dots. And if you look at, in general, most entrepreneurs leave aside what I call as the horizontal entrepreneurs, which is somebody who's starting another hotel or some, they are horizontal, they are replicating what has been. But most entrepreneurs, like you said, come up with the ideas and stuff like that. They operate in what is called as the don't know space of life. Right? And the beauty of life is that if the space is divided between you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know, and of course you know what you don't know, the smallest, less than 1-2% of the opportunities in the world are in the you know what you know space. Less risk, so highly risk mitigated, but lower rewards because less risks. So that requires a different set of a mindset of an entrepreneur. Right? Then you know that you don't know, but you know that exists. That's what. That space is maybe another 2 to 3% of the universal opportunities. So most of the entrepreneurial opportunities truly are in the don't know space. And that needs that creativity of unconstrained ability to connect dots. And hence those people that are driven in that space, because this is a highly, yes, there are breakthroughs, but breakthroughs definitely do not occur without breakdowns. And it is the passion of the person who goes through the breakdown to see the breakthrough on the other side. Right? And so that requires to be fully in the present. And hence, I may not be as rewarding as being a CEO of a large corporation, but it is definitely rewarding because I know one thing, Amit, and the world knows. We cannot take anything, not one single dollar upstairs. But what we can say is we accessed all the resources that God has given us in order to create what you want. And that is why I choose this path of being an entrepreneur. So Ankitu, thank you for the time. It was a truly enjoyable talking to you. And I look forward to your constant updates. But I know that what not to do readers would enjoy this, this interview with you. Thanks once again, my friend.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Sanjeev, to be part of this book and so much honored. And thanks for including me into this book. And I'm very much looking forward to its publication.